All right, so today, what we are talking about is how to cut a steak. And where did this come from? Like, where did this idea really come from as far as how to cut a steak? One, we're talking about freedom. We're talking about what freedom means to us, that pathway to freedom. And if y'all follow me on social at all, one of the things that I absolutely love is I love cooking. Growing up, we were very poor growing up. When we got to a point that we could actually have the funds to get food, it was an amazing experience to me to cook something and to watch my dad and my mom smile. My dad and mom worked so hard. They worked so hard all their lives. And to know that at one point in the day, I could produce something that made them smile, that made all that hard work seem worth it. It was incredible to me. So cooking has always been really near and dear to my heart. As I advanced, one of the first jobs I ever got was in a barbecue restaurant. And within 6 months, I become pit master, which meant I got to be the one getting up at 4 a.m. I think they gave me the title, so I'd be the one to get up at 4 a.m. But I fell in love with barbecuing and I fell in love with everything about it. But then as I worked, I started putting so much effort and so much time into what I was doing that I lost this element of love that I had, this passion that I had. But that didn't mean I wasn't passionate about my work. I loved what I did. I loved leadership development. And at the time, that's what I was doing. So, what I realized was I had to understand what freedom was to me. Man, there's something more to me, right? So, I designed this idea of path to freedom. And now in our business, we opened a home care business, and there's never freedom, right? But we designed through the structure, through the hierarchy, through creating this system, this operational element here, we created this opportunity to really have freedom. And freedom to me is eating. Freedom to me is cooking. It's amazing. But one thing we almost never did was we never ate together in our home care agency. Jess was always answering the phone. I was always answering the phone. So I thought, you know what? If we're telling people how to find freedom in their lives, then by golly, I'm probably going to have to teach somebody how to cut a steak again because it's been a while since you sat down to have a steak dinner with your family. One of the things I want to do is I want to show you how to not just cut a steak, but cook a steak. There's a whole bunch of different ways, and everybody has a way. And the great thing about barbecue is the only way that's wrong is the one nobody will eat. So your way could be perfect. My way suits me, but this is how I cook a steak and how I cut a steak to eat with my family, thanks to the freedom our operations have given us. So here we go. Number one, you got to start with some awesome, awesome steak. And we source ours locally. We actually buy like a cow or two every year and have it butchered and all this. And so it's all organic, all that good stuff. Which, by the way, organic meat is not going to be super red, in case you didn't know that. That's additives you get in stores and things like that. So it's kind of going to be a little paler than what you think. But the beauty of what this is, oh my Lord, it tastes so amazing. One of the best ways to cook a steak is number one, fat. You got to have fat on a steak. Now, this particular steak is a T-bone. I like to add a little extra. And remember, I was poor growing up, so my favorite fat is parquet. So put a little on there. Now, there's a couple things that this will do. Number one, it works like a binder. It'll help your seasoning to stick on, and you want to make sure and get the edges, the fat, all that good stuff. But it'll help your seasoning stick on. But also, it'll give you some really incredible caramelization that you want on your steak because you get that fat, and that fat is what sizzles, right? All right. Now, the next thing you want to do is you want to layer your seasonings. I'm not a fan, for steak at least, of a rub. I want to layer my seasonings. So I always start off with salt. Okay. And you want a big, thick steak like this. You can actually salt really good and heavy, but you want to make sure and get your edges and your sides because that's That's good too. Don't forget about it. And it's kind of like building a team, right? A lot of times we can focus on that center part, right? That's so tasty and so good and gets all the attention. But man, there's some really good pieces along the edges too, and we don't want to forget about them. So the next thing you want to do is I always start with salt and then I go to my seasoning element. I do garlic and onion powder. All right. That's really the only thing I do. Um, and if I just want to taste the steak itself, you can go with just salt and pepper, which really, really popular. However, the garlic and the onion powder just kind of elevate it just a little bit. It gives you a few extra little flavors. But that's why I don't do a rub. I like the actual layering because as you bite through, believe it or not, you'll actually taste those layers. Now, the next thing you want to do is this pepper. All right. Put your pepper on. Now, remember, here's the thing, pepper burns. So you can put pepper on a steak, a good heavy layer of pepper, and that's fine if you want to do it that way. However, recognize pepper burns. It's really easy to burn pepper. All right. So now once you get all this steak completely seasoned up and just the way you want to do it, you're going to put it on the grill. Now the thing about it is, I don't want fire to actually touch my steak, right? What I want that heat. Now when I put that down, you'll get flame ups. Everybody worries about flame ups because they don't want to char it too much. They don't want all that char on there. Well, this is how you solve that. You put a cap on it. Now, what you want to do, why flame ups happen is because of the oxygen, right? So as soon as oxygen hits, that's that heat source and that flame and that fat drips down on there and it has that oxygen to it, it's going to instantly flame up. But once you put a cap on it, it's not. It's not going to flame up as much. Once you get that set and you have that on, your temperature is going to range in this anywhere between 3 to 500 degrees. Don't worry about that. I'm going to show you why here in just a second. So once this is in here and it's going good, and you open it up, look at that. All right. Now, when I open this up, you're going to see flame, but you won't see flame right here. You'll see flame right there. There it is. Okay. There it is. So that flame happens because I took the top off. But now if you look at it without flame, it's getting good and seared. All right. So now I'm going to put it back down and I'm going to let this finish. And when it gets time and I've got this side seared to the point that I want it, right? I'm going to move it over just like I've done with this one. And I am going to cover it. Once that is seared to the way I want it on both sides, I'm going to move it to the edge of the grill and I am just going to leave it there covered and turn the vent all the way open. I want heat in there, 3 to 500 degrees. That's fine because I'm cooking with ambient heat here. See, now I don't have to worry about my steak burning or charring or any of that. It's going to come up slowly. All right. And one thing I like is I like a medium rare steak, and that's typically around 129 to 136 degrees. I put this steak on maybe 115, seared it, got it all, and set it to the side. Now, it took about 30 minutes or so to get this steak to 136, the temperature it's at. But I want you to look at this steak. All right? I'm try and squeeze it so I don't drop it. Look at that. Doesn't that look delicious? Doesn't that look delicious? And that's what you can do when you take your time. And we're talking about teams today. And it's important to understand that with our teams, we have to take time with them too. Now, we're going to put them right into training. And that grill is kind of like training, right? It's the heat of training. But we have to change our mindset to realize that the seasoning process that I did first, that's actually the training. See, in our teams, we have to season them. We have to put time into it. Not only that, we need to add to our teams the principles and values that our company is built on, and that's the seasoning. See, now some team members, they are in line with our principles. They're in line with our values. So we don't have to add a lot, right? Some steaks only salt and pepper. But some steaks, I want to have my signature on it. I want to have what this is, a Clinton Noble steak, right? Somebody eats it. And that's what we got to do with our teams as well. We have to recognize that we need to put effort into the training, and the training is the seasoning. Now I'm going to move this so this team member doesn't burn up because I put them in the heat of battle. Give me a second. There we go. All right. So now our team member is set. We've got him seasoned. We've trained him. Now it's time to put him to the grill. Now it's time to put him to the heat. But fire isn't what the team needs. They don't need instant obliterating fire. They need heat. They need to be really prepared for what is to come. That fire, if I just put fire on this steak, the outside would be done way before the inside. And when you cut a steak, and you'll see when that happens, because you'll cut a steak and it'll have this super red center to it. But when you cook a steak like this is medium rare on this steak. By the time it's set here, it may be a higher medium rare. But when you go into it, it's going to be a consistent color, right? So the other thing about cutting a steak, because I said I'm going to teach you how to cut a steak, right? Now look at this. Look at this. See that? A consistent color. Now, when you taste this steak, it's tender, it's moist, it's delicious. But that's because I took time with it. And I let the steak come to the doneness that I needed on its own. I used the heat as ambient heat, just the surrounding, that culture that I put this steak in, brought the steak to the perfect time, right? And I took the temperature of my steak. I knew that, okay, it's time for this steak to come off. That's what a good leader does. Now, when it comes to cutting a steak, let's just think about cutting a steak. When you cut a steak, you can actually cut an amazingly tender piece of meat, and it will be super tough. And it's because you're cutting with the grain. And if you cut with those grains, then that steak's going to be tough, because now you're having to cut all through the grain of that steak. However, if you cut against the grain, so in this steak, the grain is running this direction. So that means I'm going to cut this way. And I go to cut. Oh my God, it cuts so smooth. I don't know if y'all could see that, but it cuts so smooth. But I'm going to cut this steak. And what'll happen when you cut with the grain is you'll be able to pull that steak apart. It'll literally pull apart just like brisket, right? That's good. All right. That's how you cook a steak. That's how you cut a steak. And that's how you enjoy freedom with your family at the dinner table.